Nobody's Fault podcast. My name is Cash Growth. We're going to read Matthew 26 today, but did you know that Benjamin Franklin was a slave once? Did you know that? Yeah, I'm going to tell you the story. Also, this is week 5, the 5th week, the 26th episode. Where's the sound effects? Yay! All right. If you've been with me every day, thank you very much. I hope I'm making this enjoyable and useful and encouraging. Thanks for hanging with me. Matthew 26. Excuse me. When Jesus had finished all these words, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man is to be handed over for crucifixion. At that time the chief priests and the elders of the people were gathered together in the courtyard of the high priest named Caiaphas. And they plotted together to arrest Jesus covertly and kill him. But they were saying, 'Not during the festival, otherwise a riot might occur among the people.' Now when Jesus was in Bethany, at the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster vial of very expensive perfume, and she poured it on his head as he was reclining at the table. But the disciples were indignant when they saw this and said, 'Why this waste? For this perfume could have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor.' But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, 'Why are you bothering the woman? For she has done a good deed for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. For when she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, that this woman has done will also be told in memory of her.' Then one of the 12, named Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, 'What are you willing to give me to betray him to you?' And they set out for him 30 pieces of silver. From then on he looked for a good opportunity to betray Jesus. Now on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, 'Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat Passover?' And he said, 'Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am keeping the Passover at your house with my disciples.' The disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. Now when evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12. And as they were eating, he said, 'Truly I say to you that one of you will betray me.' Being deeply grieved, they began saying to him, each one, 'Surely it is not I, Lord.' And he answered them, 'He who dipped his hand with me in the bowl is the one who will betray me. The Son of Man is going away, just as it is written about him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had never been born.' And Judas, who was betraying him, said, 'Surely it is not I, Rabbi.' Jesus said to him, 'You have said it yourself.' Now while they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and after a blessing he broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.' And when he had taken a cup and given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, 'Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is being poured out for many for forgiveness of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it with you, new in my Father's kingdom.' And after singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, 'You will all fall away because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go ahead of you to Galilee.' But Peter replied to him, 'Even if they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away.' Jesus said to him, 'Truly, I say to you that this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you." And all the disciples said the same thing as well. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane and told his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And he took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee with him and began to be grieved and distressed. Then he said to them, "My soul is deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and keep watch with me." And he went a little beyond them and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So, you men could not keep watch with me for 1 hour? Keep watching and praying, so that you do not come into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away again a second time and prayed, saying, "My Father, if this cup cannot pass away unless I drink from it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them again and went away and prayed a third time, saying the same thing once more. And then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. Behold, the one who is betraying me is near." And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, came accompanied by a large crowd with swords and clubs, who came from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now he who was betraying him gave them a sign previously, saying, "Whomever I kiss, he is the one, arrest him." And immediately Judas went to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. But Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you have come for." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus reached and drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back in its place, for all those who take up the sword will perish by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? How then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say that it must happen this way?" At that time Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me, as you would against a man inciting a revolt? Every day I used to sit within the temple grounds teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets will be fulfilled." Then all the disciples left him and fled. Those who had arrested Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were gathered together. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And he came inside and sat down with the officers to see the outcome. Now the chief priests and the entire council kept trying to obtain false testimony against Jesus, so that they may put him to death. They did not find any, even though many false witnesses came forward. But later on 2 came forward and said, "This man stated, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.'" The high priest stood up and told him, "Do you offer no answer for what these men are testifying against you?" But Jesus kept silent. And the high priest said to him, "I place you under oath by the living God to tell us whether you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said it yourself. But I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his robes and said, "He has blasphemed. What further need do we have of witnesses? See, you have now heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" They answered, "He deserves death." Then they spit in his face and beat him with their fists, and others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, you Christ. Who is the one who hit you?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a slave woman came to him and said, "You too were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you are talking about." When he had gone out to the gateway, another slave woman saw him, and said to those who were there, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." And again he denied it, with an oath, "I do not know the man." A little later, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "You really are one of them as well, since even the way you talk gives you away." Then he began to curse and swear, "I do not know the man." And immediately a rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the statement that Jesus had made, "Before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. Wow. Things changed fast for the disciples. Verses 20 to 25, where Jesus was talking with Jesus and says, "Am I the one?" Yeah. That section caught my eye of all this the most. I mean, like, what was it about Judas that God didn't have his heart? I mentioned yesterday, I think in Judas's mind, Jesus was just a teacher. Knowledge. Knowledge is not enough. I think Judas was logically convinced for a while that there was something special about Jesus. But Judas didn't totally give his heart to Jesus, to God. He was in it up here, but not here. That really jumped out at me in all the things we read today. So, teacher or Lord? Rabbi or Lord? What's the difference? What's a Lord? A Lord. We have kind of a negative connotation of the word. I don't think we really understand it the way they understood the term Lord back then. You willingly submit to a Lord. Our modern understanding, we think of it as like a slavery, like it's a bad thing or a negative thing to have a lord over us. You're lording power over me. It hasn't always, in every situation, meant that. All my life I've been fascinated with Benjamin Franklin. So when I was 22 years old, I started a print shop in a small town. And Ben Franklin was a printer, right? There's so many parallels. He was a businessman. I was a businessman. But did you know that he knew slavery? He was actually a sort of a slave. He went through an apprenticeship to learn a trade. Back before there was public schools and colleges and universities, to learn a trade, I mean, life is hard back then for everyone. Really hard. For thousands of years. Life, you have no idea how hard it is. I'm going to interview a guy who was raised in the jungles of Africa. I met him. Really powerful story. But life has been hard. We're only one of a few generations, 5 or 6 generations, that have had a somewhat easy, orderly life. Peaceful. But back to Ben Franklin. He was really young. I read his autobiography. There's a few books that I think every person should read while they're going through school. One is Ben Franklin's autobiography, where he writes about his life. I'm like, when I read it, like, why have I never been exposed to this before? Powerful book. So he went through an apprenticeship to learn a trade. you basically, your parents, if they wanted a better future for you, they would send you somewhere. They wouldn't see you for years. You're maybe 10, 12, 14 years old. They'd ship you off somewhere. Leonardo da Vinci basically was an indentured servant, a slave. The kind of slaves we heard about in this story are the kinds that Ben Franklin and Leonardo da Vinci, the kinds of slaves they were. You're an indentured servant to learn something. It was kind of a blessing to get you out of this hellhole poverty life that everybody around you was living in. If you could learn a trade, that was your ticket out of being poor or miserable and starving. So we have this terrible negative view of lordship. Jesus wants to be Lord of our life. To have a Lord, Jesus, you willingly lay down your life and let him direct your life. He's not controlling you. You still have a free will. But you're trying to walk in the things that he's designed for you to do. I mean, he's got plans for you. They're better than your own. So, Ben Franklin talked about how bad the food was and how bad he was treated and different things as an indentured servant. So, first, to become the servant, you had to give up your body in service to someone else. And then you got to fill your mind with some good stuff. The body and the mind. Judas got it backwards. He was learning from Jesus, but Jesus never had all of Judas's body, his heart, his deepest things. Ben Franklin, to learn his trade, he had to give his body into that indentured servitude first. Same for Leonardo da Vinci. So, Ben Franklin knew slavery. Isn't that interesting? And I want to read you some of his quotes. A lot of people have tried to teach us for a long time that he was not a man of faith. I've read his own words. I've read other biographies of him too. Some omit some things that would give you some clues that this guy had faith. Maybe not as deep as some of the others. Or, you know, he wasn't perfect. I guarantee you, none of us are perfect. But there was more to that guy, I think, than what we've been told. I want to read some of his quotes. For every minute spent in organizing, an hour is earned. We talked about that yesterday with the egg cartons. Investing. We do not stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. That's kind of cool. Life's biggest tragedy is that we get too old, too soon, and wise too late. That's a good one. Instead of cursing the darkness, light a candle. He said, the Constitution only guarantees the American people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself. Ooh, that's a good one. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech. Whoa. We just went through a few years of the speech police coming out of the woodwork and canceling people on social media, people like presidents and people who had different medical opinions than others. Oh, they don't deserve a voice. No, we can't let them talk. Ben Franklin knew that that's how you overthrow liberty of a nation. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech. Wow. He knew what would happen here. Now here's one from Ben Franklin you wouldn't expect. And to know that God governs in the affairs of men, that he hears and answers prayers, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him, is indeed a powerful regulator of human conduct. I think he knew the Bible a little bit. Fear not death, for the sooner we die, the longer we shall be immortal. Eternal bodies? Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. I like that one. Never ruin an apology with an excuse. That one gets me. I've probably done that a lot. Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that's the stuff life is made of. Here's another one. When you're good to others, you're best to yourself. And this one, lost time is never found again. Oh, this is another good one. What you seem to be really. So be what you would appear to be, really. That's a good one too. So anyway, that is episode 26, starting the 5th week. Thanks for hanging with me. I'll see you tomorrow.